I'm doing this video series because there is a 19.1 version of Apex now. I have a complete video series for Oracle Apex 18.1, and the current series will use Apex 19.1 and will follow in parallel with the same steps in the 18.1 series. So I have for software this time XE 11.2, Apex 19.1, SQL Developer 19.1. I will not walk through the steps of installing XE and upgrading to Apex 19.1. You can look at the previous video series and this particular video, Apex 00 of 30, if you want a demonstration of how to install XE and upgrade Apex. The steps of going from Apex 18.1 to 19.1 are the same. So if you want to work along, you can download and install Oracle XE 11.2, or you can use the most current version, which I do not have installed. You can download Oracle Apex 19.1 and go through the steps of upgrading to that. The one other thing that I have is I have also installed a translated version of Apex for Spanish. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the documentation. It's pretty simple to follow and pretty easy to do. But it's not quite as simple as I've seen on a few posts online. It's not just a matter of selecting a different language. You do have to install a set of support files, images, and other things that will provide the translated version of Apex. Once you've done that, then when you log in and go to, in my case, the local install of Oracle Apex, I can pick between Spanish and English. So if I look at my version of the database, as I told you, if I run this, then I can see that I do have 11.2 installed. I can go to SQL Developer Help About and see that I'm working with version 19.1. So let's get started. In this video, we're going to make a copy of a form in Apex so that we have kind of a before and after example after we make some modifications to one of the forms by adding lists of values, lookup lists. Prior to creating the list of values, LOV, we'll look at some existing data in the tables that we already have, and we'll use an SQL code called distinct, select distinct, to look at that data. So we're going to provide lists of values which are essential to data entry. They give a valid list that whoever's entering data can pick from rather than trying to guess what should go into a particular field. There are two categories of lists of values. One is static, and that is when we have a list that we do not expect to change over time. It might, but we don't think it will. So a yes-no list of options, for example, and we'll put those in shared components. There's also a dynamic list of values where we pull values from existing data where we think that data is going to change over time, and the dynamic list gives us the most current list at any point in time. So I'm going to log into Apex as a developer. So I'm logging in as the developer, Carlo Mora. I will go to Application Builder and look at the one application that we currently have. I'm going to run the application and I'll have to log in. I'm going to look at the report list of animals and then select any one of these to get to the form that we use for data entry. So I'll click Edit for one of these just to get to this form, which is page 4, as we see here in the designer options at the bottom. So I'm going to select Edit this page. I'll make a copy of this page. I'm copying a page in this application, and it's page 4. Apex is trying to number this 3 because I deleted 3 in a previous video. I'm going to go ahead and number it 5, and I will call it, instead of animal data, I'll say animal data LOVs to distinguish it from the other form, the original. Click Next. I will not create a navigation menu item. There are other things I could change, but I will take everything as it is and copy. So notice I'm on page 5, and if I run this, it's going to look right now exactly like page 4, which when I run this without any edits, I have fields where I can enter in data, but I don't know what category to enter here. I don't know what to put for mix. I don't know what to put for adult size. So that's what we want to address right now. So I'm going to switch over to SQL Developer, where I've logged in and into the schema Animal Shelter 191 and look at some of the data. I could also do this through SQL Workshop. It's a little easier to use the SQL command line in SQL Developer, at least for me. So I'm logged in, and I'm in Animal Shelter 191. Off to the left, if I expand that schema, I can see my tables. So I could look at animals, and this shows me the construction with comments of the columns in this table. But I can also look at the data and see what data is in there. But we have several rows of data in this table. So I'm going to use some SQL to narrow down what I see in the data from a particular column. So I have select category from animals. I run that, and I'll see dog, 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 dog. So what I want to do is not get repeats of a value. So I'll add the word distinct before category and run that. So I only have one category entry right now in my table, which is dog. However, I do expect category to accommodate cats, reptiles, birds, and other creatures. So we'll see how we deal with that shortly. But I can modify this SQL code and take a look at some of the other data. So let's take a look at mix, for example. So right now I just have yes. I think I need to have yes, no, and potentially a third option, which is unknown. Let's look at adult size. So using the distinct, it looks down that column for however many rows of data you have in the table, but only gives you the distinctly different entries. So I'll put in adult size and run that. So I'm seeing large, medium, miniature, extra large, and small. So now what I want to do, there are other columns we want to deal with, but I want to show you how I can look at those columns in the animals table. So I'm going to come up to File, Data Modeler, Import, and I'm going to import the data dictionary. I'll do this again in another video, but this is a very handy tool in SQL Developer that gives us a visual representation of the tables and the relationships between the tables. So I'll select Data Dictionary, and I'm going to connect as this schema. I'll select this schema again, and then I will go ahead and select all the tables, but I'm really going to just look at animals. And I'll click Next and Finish. So notice what we have here is a layout of the tables with the relationships drawn between the tables. Right now I want to focus on animals. So I've done a screenshot of this, and I'm going to take a look at that. So here I see a screenshot of the fields in the animals table, and out to the right I have typed in some of the columns that we want to provide lists of values for, and whether or not those are static or dynamic. Category, we're going to make static. We think we can define at this point the variety of animals that we might take into the shelter in the future. Dominant breed is dynamic. We have already used the Apex lookup table feature to create a table of dominant breeds, and if we add breeds, those will show up whenever we use a list of values from that lookup table. Mix, that's going to be a yes, no, or unknown. Oftentimes people think that they have a two-choice, two-answer option, yes or no, but that forces people to enter a yes or a no when they may not even have the answer. So generally you want a yes, no, unknown. We're going to create that static lookup, yes, no, unknown, and we will use it in more than one field in the form. Adult size, we're going to make that static. Sex, we'll create another static LOV, which is male, female, unknown. So I'm going back into Apex and look at how to create these LOVs. I want to edit the application itself, and I want to go to Shared Components and see under Other Components we have List of Values. Let's start by creating the yes-no list of values. I'm going to create, it'll be from scratch, it will be static, and I'll just say yes dash no dash unknown. Now we have two columns, only two columns in a list of values. We have what you see actually displayed and the actual data that is stored in the column of a table. So I'm going to put yes here and change this or set that to Y, and this will be no, and this will be in, and then I'll have unknown, and that'll be U. So we'll see and pick one of these, but in the column that uses that list of values, we'll store Y, N, or U. So we create that list of values. And I'm going to pause the video and create a couple more of the static lists and then show them to you. So I created a list of values for size. I can click here to edit this, and I can see that my display is miniature for men, small for SM, medium for MED, and so on. A developer can come in here and modify this list, but that's the drawback to using a static list. If a change has to happen to the list, then a developer, not somebody who enters data in the database, has to make that change. So I don't need to change anything there. Let's look at animal category. I created that list, display column, and return. So in this case, what we see is what we will actually store. Now I'm going to create a dynamic list that uses the dominant breed lookup table Apex created for us in a previous video. So I will click on Create, and it'll be from scratch, but this time it'll be dynamic, and I will call it dominant breed. Now I can simply modify the SQL code here. The first item is to list the column that will be displayed. So I'm not sure, I don't remember the name of that, so let me switch back over to SQL Developer and look up the dominant breed. So it's DOM breed ID, DOM breed ID. So this will be DOM breed, where I see the word for the dominant breed, and this will be DOM breed ID. Again, coming back to SQL Developer, if I select this and look at the data, then I'm seeing this is the ID, the unique value, and this is the name, DOM breed. So this is coming from the DOM breed lookup. So let's try that. This we can't see directly in terms of a list of values because it is dynamic. We will see that when we put it into a form. So come back to your application, and I'm going to come to not animal data but animal data loves. I'll go ahead and open that in Design Editor, and I'm going to modify some of these. I'm going to take category on the left side and select the type. So I want select list. Once I do that, notice this is red. That's because we have other things we need to specify in the properties. What's the type? I could have written SQL code specifically for this page item, but I created the list of values in shared components. So I select that, and then I have to select which one, and this is category, so animal category. I can come down to, let's see, I think the next one would be mix, and that'll be a select list. If you want, you could also try, I think on this one I'll do the pop list just so that you see the difference in the look of that. I still have to come down here to the list of values and select shared components and do mix. And on this one I don't have mix. I'm using the yes, no, unknown option. So I pick that. Adult size, select list, shared components, size, sex. I'm not sure I created that one. I forget. Let's take a look. Shared component, and I don't have sex listed here. So I'm going to skip over that for just a second, and I will go to spayed neutered. Let's see, on this I actually need to go back and make that. I need to put that back to text field so it's not red anymore. Spayed neutered, I'm going to use select list, scroll down, shared components, yes, no. I'll also do house trained. That's yes, no. I'm going to pause the video and go back and create the list of values for sex. You should be able to do that. I need to save my changes. I need to go back to my application, go to shared components, and I will make a list of values where I have female, male, and unknown. So I've added sex. I have these options. Go back to my application, go back to that page, which is the animal data LOVs, and come down to sex, and I'll make this a pop list just to look at the difference, and make the source shared components and get my list of values for sex. Let's run this, save and run. So what I see now is on category, I'm seeing my options. Adult size, I see the options. For sex, this is what it will look like if you use the pop LOV. It has a different look, but it still gives you a list to pick from. House trained, yes, no. Spayed, neutered, yes, no. So I know this video is going a little long, but I'm still going to come back to the application. And what I want to do for status is I want to create another lookup. So we've done this before, but it helps to see it again. SQL Workshop, Object Browser, and I want to look at animals, the animals table, and then I want to create a lookup based on the status field. So I'll select status, and I'll accept the default names and have Apex create this lookup table for me. So now when I look at the data for animals, I will see that I have a status ID. If I look at the status lookup, I'll see 1 is for quarantined, 2 is for fostered, so on and so forth. I'll come back to Application Builder, go into my application, go into Shared Component, list the values, create, and this will be animal status, and it will be dynamic. So I'll come in here and change the syntax again. So this will be status, and this will be status ID, and I just know this because of the standard way in which Apex creates these column names, and this will be status lookup. come back to my application and go into Animal Data LOV, select Status, switch it to Select List, come down, do the Shared Components, and select Animal Status. Save that, run that, and now for status, I have a drop-down list of my options. Notice, if I go back home and look at my report, I now have a broken report because I no longer have a column called status in the animals table. I have a column called status underscore ID. I will edit this page. I could also just recreate it, but right now I think it's easier to edit. And I'll go to the report source, click on the code, and change that from status to status underscore ID. Click OK, save it, run it. Now I have a report. So I'll select one of these records, and I'm getting an error message. I'm going to edit page 4, which is the form. And what I have here for page 4 status, let's take a look at that, see what its source is. And it's saying that this is invalid. And they're right, it should be status ID. So I'll save that. So now I have the form, it's empty. I need to go back to my report and call it from an existing record. So both the report page and the form page are working, but keep in mind this is the original form. There's no use of LOVs here. List of values call the original form. I want it to call page 5. So I'll go back to the report. Long video, but we're almost done here. I will edit this page. I will edit the attributes, and instead of calling page 4, I will call page 5. And so the item that I want to get the value for is not P4 but P5, and I can simply select that and click Save. Come back to the application as a whole, run that, get my report. Now instead of calling the original page with no LOVs in that form, I want to call the form that has the list of values. I get the same error I had before, not a problem. Edit this page. We just got through doing this in the other copy of this form, the form without LOVs. I take status on the left side, scroll down, and column invalid, simply select status ID, save it, run that. I want to come back to my report just to see if it steps through correctly. So here's Jake, edit, and there's Jake, but now I have choices in my drop-down list. See you in the next video.